do it while you're still staying in shape for the sake of staying in shape. Welcome to 10 Minute Travels. With me as always is Phil Freeman.
And with me as always is Shane Patrick. And tonight we have a real treat. We're going to talk about visiting mountain gorillas in Uganda.
Let's get right to it, shall we? Yeah, and then the second day when we went to that other group, that gorilla that had just kind of taken over his harem, that was quite a bit more work. We drove, kind of skirted the park and went to the far, what would that be? The far southeastern border of it. And we got out of the vehicle and hiked. And it was probably 2.5 or 3 hours of hiking. Not quite vertical. You know, I only had to put a hand down a couple times, but it was definitely steep and wet and slippery, and spending a lot of your steps were on just vines because the vegetation was so thick that you didn't actually touch the ground. So it was hard work. And it was pouring of rain. Pouring. We climbed about 1,500 meters. So 3,200 feet or something like that. It's a lot. And then we got up into the kind of the rolling ridge lines. And it was pouring rain and really thick vegetation. But because there were so few animals, and it was very, very subdued attitude because they really didn't care that we were there or not. They're just, whatever, eating, napping, picking their nose. They pick their noses just like we do.
What's it take for someone to get there? How do you gotta get there?
Well, it's one of the activities in the world that definitely requires money because they have regulated it. And that's all three countries, Congo, Rwanda, Uganda. You have to go through the government, through their rangers. You don't necessarily have to stay in the nice camps in the park. You know, you can stay a long ways away and a van ride and whatnot. But the actual permit itself is going to be $1,000, which is a lot of money. But I'm glad I spent it. And $1,000 to me is a lot of money. I have to work a long time to get a comma with 3 zeros behind it and put it in my pocket. So it's not just like, whatever, grand here, grand there. But it's $1,000 I'm really glad I spent for whatever that's worth.
It's per permit?
Yep, that gets you 1 hour with the gorillas. And it might be 20 minutes worth of hiking to find a group, or it might be all day worth of hiking. And they don't guarantee that you would see a group, but they guarantee that you would see a group. You know what I mean? They never say absolutely, but they've never not found one since 2000. And then, you know, to get to Uganda, to get to Africa in general is not easy. You know, you can't, even if you live in Atlanta, you're still going to fly to Amsterdam or Munich or something like that. And then you're going to fly to Dakar or something like that, you know, Western Africa, and you're going to sit on a runway for a while, and then you're going to get to Uganda. And
what's the principal airport in Uganda?
Well, Entebbe is where we flew into. Entebbe is the busiest airport because it's the one that services the safari stuff. It's not the capital, but
there's no direct flights Atlanta Entebbe.
No, almost all of them. Well, there's no direct flight, period, and almost all of them actually sit on the ground in either Dakar or Rwanda.
So milk run.
A milk run, yep. And then when you get there, it's going to be 10:30 at night or something like that.
Of course.
And then you'll have to stay in a hotel of some sort and then catch an airplane to the bush the next morning.
At least you're not exhausted.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be tired. And it's one of those things where what I would say is do it now. Make it your next trip. Because it is difficult. Just the actual travel part of it, and I'm sure you have a list like that too. Like Germany is really great. I have a feeling I'll be able to travel in Germany when I'm in my 70s, and I won't miss much.
The easiest places to get to are the easiest places to get to.
Yeah, save them for when you need it to be easy. And when you're, if you walk to get your mail or do laps at lunch or whatever it is, then now's the time to do trips to see the gorillas, motorcycle trips to developing nations, whatever. Do it while you're still staying in shape for the sake of staying in shape.
And what's the deal? You can't take it with you anyway, right? Isn't that what they said?
Yeah. As long as I die with a penny in my pocket, I guess that's all I need, something like that. And we talked about many minutes ago. There's only 400 of these things left. They could all get shot tomorrow.
It's true.
400 is not very many, especially when you're talking about automatic weapons. And, I said earlier, too, about how the country is very welcoming to tourists, and they're glad that we go there and whatnot. And they've educated the public on, hey, we don't pick on these gorillas for coming into our backyard and stealing bananas, because they're giving your son a job as a ranger and your daughter a job as a cabin cleaner at one of the camps or whatever.
Or a pilot.
Yeah. Yeah, all that stuff. I mean, they definitely have sexually traditional roles there, more so than Southern Africa. The women are kind of stuck in, but whatever, they can get jobs. They are allowed and encouraged to get jobs. And so the gorillas.
How much does each one of those gorillas bring to the state?
Boy, I don't know that number, but it's.
Do they?
I'm sure they do, because they have. So let me think for a second. They have about 70 permits a day available. So just in permits, $70,000 a day at that one in Uganda. And figure they're not always full, even call it $50,000 a day for easy figuring. $2 will buy you and your sweetie pie a really ridiculous lunch. So $50,000 a day is making a huge difference. Plus that doesn't take into account the camps and the rental cars and the guides and all of that stuff. Those gorillas are extraordinarily important to their economy.
That was Shane Patrick talking about visiting the mountain gorillas in Uganda. If you want to learn more about Shane doing that kind of crazy stuff or anything else about 10-Minute Travels, check out 10minutetravels.com.
And we want to remind you, make sure your sense of humor matches your sense of adventure.
And please like, subscribe, and share this podcast on all the platforms.